Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jim Fuse with Fusion Marketing, and I'm excited today to have Gregg Burkhalter, the LinkedIn guy who is here in Atlanta as well, join me. And Gregg is here to give us some great ideas on why we want to be using LinkedIn, not only this year, 2020, but for the decade to come. So, Gregg, thank you so much for joining me. And so, Gregg, tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you become the LinkedIn guy?
Jim, first of all, thank you for giving me your platform today to talk on LinkedIn Live. I'm extremely honored. How did I become the LinkedIn guy? Well, this story, Jim, I tell in almost every presentation I do. And the bottom line answer to that question is this: it was not a plan when I began. For about 3 decades, I worked in music and broadcasting. And as you can tell by the photos on my wall, did a lot of music in the country music arena. It started out my career as a disc jockey and did that for the first decade over the southeastern US. The last 2 decades, I fell into my dream job, the job that I thought I'd retire from. I was the guy who put all the music into all the truck stops and convenience stores around America. So if you ever went into a convenience store, you saw a little spinner rack with CDs, there's a great chance I put that there. So that was something I really enjoyed doing because I had the opportunity to hang out day in and day out with recording artists. In fact, my dream was that I'd retire from that job. But unfortunately, as in most careers nowadays, my dream did not pan out. About 6 years ago, that $250 million company went bankrupt. And when it did, you had a guy who was on no social media channels at all. And in fact, I'd never networked in my life. I didn't even know what the word really meant. A friend of mine, about 10 years younger, invited me over to his house for a little bit of strategy. And when I left, I had two bits. One was I had to have a business card printed up that looked like I had a job. He told me it's called a networking card. And he says, you got to be on LinkedIn. So I took that card, had one printed up, walked into the first business I saw near my house, which happened to be a marketing company, walked inside, said, I'm looking for a job. And I've got a networking card here. I'm not really sure. What is networking? And I can tell as you look at their eyes, they're holding back laughter. They're like, what is going on with this guy? He's clueless. So they stopped everything and talked to me for a couple of hours. And when I left, I had a job. They offered me a job as a digital marketing consultant. So I was excited, wanted to share the news. So I called my friend up who had spoken to me earlier, told him I had a job. And well, he wasn't excited. He asked that question to me again that always made me stammer. He says, are you on LinkedIn? I said, no, I'm afraid of it. He goes, well, I respect you so much and I care about your career so much. I'm going to force you to get on LinkedIn. So I went back to his house. He set up my account. And when I left his kitchen table, I became like most folks on LinkedIn. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. But from day one, I had a strategy. And that strategy was correct because 1 year into my LinkedIn use, after having met no one I could talk to about LinkedIn, I get my first indicator, there's something going on here. When the local chamber of commerce sends me an email and tells me they're starting an education academy, and they want me to be their very first speaker and do a workshop on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm thinking they got the wrong guy because I don't belong to the chamber. Wrote them a quick note back and says, thank you, but you must have the wrong person in your address book. They responded immediately and said, we know who you are, will you do it? At that point, I realized something magical was going on. Could I take what I'm doing here and blow it up into something bigger? So I kind of played around and tested the waters for about 3 months. And in June 2015, I decided I'm going to roll the dice. I'm going to try to be an authority on LinkedIn. I'm going to try to be someone I call the LinkedIn guy. So I walked into my boss at that marketing company with my excitement to say, I'm going to be the LinkedIn guy. He was excited too. And then we started talking about how does the brand sharing work when you work as the LinkedIn guy and work for a company? And well, we couldn't sort that out. So I started my own company. First year was amazing. I must have spoken to 100 groups and I was training people around America immediately. In fact, I remember sitting at this desk in front of this keyboard, looking at this screen going, what an incredible first year. And then that feeling of euphoria left me when I heard the news that Microsoft has just bought LinkedIn. That shook me up. In fact, I was actually a little agitated at my desk. I was shaking. Well, I was worried that, wait, is Microsoft going to bother me? Is LinkedIn going to reach out to me? And what's going to happen here? I'm not really sure. Well, that question was answered about 2 hours later when I got my very first email from Microsoft. And I went from being slightly concerned to I might have had my first anxiety attack. I'm not sure. But it took me about an hour to click on that email. When I clicked on it, there was a note from Microsoft telling me that it is official. We have purchased LinkedIn. But the surprising thing was the request they had. They wanted to know, would I come to the Microsoft store in Atlanta and do a workshop to help them celebrate LinkedIn? I went, you have got to be kidding me. Well, the story gets better. I've been back 4 times to Microsoft, including my most recent time. I went to the corporate office in Atlanta and did a regional webinar for their sales team. So that's how I became the LinkedIn guy. Since then, it's been a great journey of building a brand, helping other people, and being part of the LinkedIn community. So that's how it happened for me. Thanks for asking, Jim.
Well, and I think that's really neat. And how we actually met was I had gone to actually my first Kennesaw Business Association luncheon, and I actually ended up joining after that. And I'll say it was partially because of the value you brought that day on teaching all us about LinkedIn personal branding. Because a lot of people don't think about the fact that, and we talked about this a little bit before we came on the air, about the fact that when I first used LinkedIn, and I think, you might agree, we all thought of it as it was this online resume where basically people were looking for jobs, but it's really changed a lot. And so what I'd like you to talk about, if you could, is what is personal branding and why should we care? And why do we want to do it on LinkedIn, Greg?
Well, if you're not familiar and confident with the meaning of personal branding and the true value associated with that term, you need to get on board. Here's a reality check for you. Right now in today's workplace, your personal brand has incredible value. In fact, at some point in your career, I don't know if it's 5 years from now or a decade from now, it might be 2 decades from now, but at some point in your career, your personal brand is going to be your only opportunity to make a living and work at the level you want to work. In fact, people ask me all the time, why would a company like Microsoft, or why would these colleges and universities, or people like Primerica and Bank, why would people bring you in to talk to their employees about building a personal brand? Aren't they afraid they might lose them to a new company? Well, the risk of not branding your employees is less than risk of not branding them is greater than actually branding them, because what you got to realize is your employees are your gateway for brand exposure. Because right now, the customers of your company and the future employees of your company don't really believe that company message like they used to. What do they believe? They believe the employees of the company and the current customers of the company. So the personal brand of your employees has tremendous value. In fact, when an employee of your company shares something on social media, they get 500% more exposure than if the company tried to share something on social media. And in fact, they have 10 times more followers than the company page do. So your personal brand not only is valuable to you, it's valuable to the company you work for. In fact, your professional toolbox these days, the one we carry around that you can't see, but we know we have, it's a lot bigger than it used to be. In the old days, you had your education and where you've worked. Nowadays, you have 2 new, what I call power tools that can change your life and change your career. Those power tools are a solid personal brand and an engaged professional network. Those last 2 things will change things for you. If you're looking for a job, you can get a job above someone else if those last 2 things are in play. Or if you're competing for business with another company, you're going to get that job. And you're probably going to get that job at a higher price because of your personal brand and also your connection to the community. So yeah, personal branding, I cannot reiterate it enough. It is so, so important to you.
I think those are some extremely valuable tips there. Greg, you're bringing a lot of value to our audiences today. And so, folks, if you're on LinkedIn, one of the things, when I told why I like StreamYard so much, as you can follow or connect with Greg on LinkedIn. He's always looking to connect with people and help everyone add value to their network. So, Greg, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that folks have about LinkedIn, and what are some of the most common mistakes that you see?
Well, you sort of alluded to one of the big mistakes is people have a misconception of what LinkedIn's all about. In fact, when I talk to people about LinkedIn for the very first time, one of the responses I get is, "Oh, I'm not looking for a job." Well, the reality is you need to be on LinkedIn because LinkedIn is going to be so valuable to your future career growth. In fact, with a strong personal brand and a dedicated and a regimented LinkedIn routine, if you're doing that correctly, as you get better and better at it, your choice of looking for a job, you don't have to look anymore. Jobs start finding you. So that's one of the reasons why you need to be on LinkedIn. Now, What happens a lot of times when I speak to groups, and Jim, you've heard me speak, I kind of get energized on stage. People leave there all motivated. I'm going to get on LinkedIn. So they get on there and they get too loud, too fast. You got to remember, LinkedIn is a professional network, okay? So just like any networking event, you don't walk into the room, pass out your business card to everybody, give them a copy of your flyer, and leave the room. Because if you did, they'd say, who is that? Well, that's exactly what people do on LinkedIn when you come out of nowhere and get very loud. So you got to be sure you got to ease your way into LinkedIn. A couple of the functional mistakes I see, one of the biggest ones is this. When you see something on your news feed, you have three options. You can like or create a reaction. You can comment or you can share. My number one brand exposure mistake I see is this. If you see something on your news feed and you push that share button, you've helped that person who created that post a little bit, but you actually hurt yourself. Here's why. If one of those updates that you decided to push the share on was my particular update, yes, my brand got some exposure in your network, but what happened was your brand got no exposure in my network. So you just denied potentially 10,000 people from seeing your name. Big mistake. So if you want brand growth using the news feed and adding and commenting, do like or comment. Don't push that share button. When you push share, it resets and removes all the likes and comments, and it becomes a new update when your people see it. Be part of the conversation. Don't steal the conversation.
I think that's so powerful. And I know I've seen other folks mention that as well. And so yes, we think it's kind of almost that Facebook trap of, oh, share this stuff and more people will see it. But every platform is slightly different. And I think it's so important that we do comment within that actual original post and not feel like, oh, I'm going to share this and somehow that's going to be helpful. And an excellent point. And so, of course, we got New Year's resolutions. So right now, right, it's LinkedIn is like the gym. So people are making New Year's LinkedIn use resolutions. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as you well know, I went to the gym a couple of days ago. I couldn't find a parking lot. Okay. So everybody's a member of the gym now. People are a member of LinkedIn, but it's just like the gym. If you don't show up, nothing happens. Okay. So what you're probably going to see on LinkedIn, if you watch your news feed for say the next 2 or 3 months, you're going to see some new names and some new faces that you have not thought about in forever. They're going to suddenly be on your news feed. And if you keep watching that news feed by April, those names are going to disappear. Because what they're going to figure out is something I know. And this doesn't discourage me, but it does a lot of people. LinkedIn is not an opportunist platform. There is no shortcut. You got to put skin in the game now and consistently. In fact, if you get active on LinkedIn and you build your brand to the level you want and you slow down, your brand starts moving back the other way. It takes consistency, dedication to succeed on LinkedIn. So yeah, make a resolution to be on LinkedIn, but don't make it a 90-day resolution. Make it a lifetime resolution. And once you do that, every year your success will continue to grow. The quality of your network will continue to grow, and the brand and respect that people have for you will continue to grow. So yeah, use it properly, be dedicated about it, and don't treat it as a resolution. Treat it as a commitment and an investment on your career.
Right. And Greg, I know for you, and this is one of the things we really wanted to focus on today, you're really big on personal branding, and it's really what your company is based on. So what does the correct personal brand, company brand look like?
As I alluded to earlier, your personal brand has so much power in what your company perceives your value as. So here's what the mix sort of looks like. First of all, your personal brand is just that. It's yours. You need to maintain it. You need to build it in such a way that it's transferable. And also, when you're working for a company, for the time being, you are sharing that brand with the company. What you should never do is sell your personal brand to your company. You can't do that. They can't ask for that. You need to maintain your personal brand integrity. So what are some of the early warning signs that potentially you might be tying your brand too close to where you work? Well, one of the first indicators for me is when I look at somebody's profile and I look at the words below their name, which is called their headline. When I see the words below their name, basically it's nothing but their job title and the company they work for. What that tells me is one thing. They're basing their whole brand on their job and where they work. And that person, if they happen to lose that job, is going to take a major brand reset. The reality is your brand is not based on where you work. Your brand is based on the value you bring to where you work. And it's a value that grows and matures. And it also can be shared with other companies down the road. So please be sure you maintain your personal brand integrity and your brand strategy. That doesn't mean that you can't share it with your company, because that's one of your valuable assets. And if you've got the right mix between the company respecting and training you on your branding, and you doing a solid presentation on personal branding, if that's their trust on both ends, you can help each other grow. The personal brand can grow and the company brand can grow. But it takes both being on the same page with an understanding that each has a responsibility.
I think those are just, so important for people to think about, which kind of leads me to the next question. And I don't know if there is a way, but what is, or is there a fast way to get brand exposure and traction using LinkedIn?
Well, you got to understand, first of all, that LinkedIn's not about you. That's the first thing you have to understand. LinkedIn is an us channel. It's about the community and the value you bring to it. Also, you will learn too that you cannot promote yourself to branding success. You cannot do that on LinkedIn. It takes relationships. It takes others to help you. In fact, I only take credit for two things in my branding process. One is a concept that someone could believe in, and a person they could trust to deliver that concept. That's what I take credit for. Building my brand, I don't take credit for that. People around me built my brand. And as they built my brand and suddenly my brand started getting traction, I assumed a new level of responsibility I didn't foresee in the early stages. And that is, if I have my brand built, I've got to always deliver on my brand promises. These people are depending on me to be the guy I say I am. So if I say I'm the LinkedIn guy and I enjoy helping people, I better know LinkedIn and I better be seen as helping people. But you know what? This answers your question in an indirect way. One of the benefits of having a strong personal brand is you can jumpstart other people's brands. So the answer to your question is this: the fastest way to start growing your brand at a faster pace than you doing it yourself is find people on LinkedIn who are well branded, who you respect. Help those people get their brand even bigger, and you will jumpstart your brand at a faster pace than you can ever do on your own. So it's pretty cool. Helping other people jumpstart your brand. I love that.
Yes, I agree. I agree. And one of the big things that Microsoft has really helped change is LinkedIn company pages. And how important do you think those are, Greg?
LinkedIn company page value has gone up and down. It started out being very valuable, kind of faded away. And LinkedIn now is saying, you know what? We're going to try to raise the value. Here's the challenge that you're dealing with when it comes to company pages. The true power of LinkedIn has always been the personal page, because you can't build a relationship with your company page. You cannot grow your company page followers as fast as you can your personal page followers. So the personal page on LinkedIn is the true powerhouse. In fact, for most small to medium-sized companies, the value of your personal page in your whole LinkedIn branding process is probably about 10%. The personal pages of your employees is probably 90%. But the company page does have value. It's a place where you can do what a company page is designed for. Promote your services, sell what you do, talk about what makes you different. By the way, when someone connects with you on LinkedIn as one of your connections, they don't give you permission to do that. You've got it mixed up. That's the company page where you're doing all the pitching. When somebody connects with you on LinkedIn, they're really only telling you one thing: I'm open to the opportunity of you and I building a relationship that is mutually beneficial to both of us. I am not expecting you to send me a copy paste sales pitch as our next correspondence. So you got to understand, you've got to have the right tone. Personal page is more about being humble, helpful, and knowledgeable. Company page is more about selling and promoting your stuff. Do not get those voices mixed up. But the personal page, in the whole scheme of things right now, has the most tremendous value on LinkedIn. A couple of things is that LinkedIn's doing to the company page to try to help it raise the value. One of those is the ability to invite your connections to follow your company page. That's a feature LinkedIn rolled out. They took it away. They recently brought it back. And from what I'm hearing, they might be taking it back again to adjust it. Well, that's one thing they've done. The other thing they've done is allowed you, when you post something on your company page, to notify every employee that a post has been made on the company page. So that increases the chance for opportunity for employees to interact with the update. So LinkedIn is trying to raise the value of the company page, but it's not there yet, but it still has value. So you've got to have a LinkedIn company page. Why do I have a LinkedIn company page for me right now? I got so frustrated when I looked at my LinkedIn personal profile that I saw my job had no logo next to it. So if you have a gray space next to your company name, the only way you're going to get a logo there is with a LinkedIn company page. So that was kind of the initiative that made me move forward on a company page.
It's funny that you say that, Greg, because I think that's why I did the same thing. Because it was like, oh my gosh, I have my own company, but I don't have a logo. How do I get it on there? And yeah, so even though it wasn't necessarily posting a lot, I agree. And even sometimes I don't think some of these volunteer organizations realize that even by them setting up a company page, they're now allowing those folks, like even Toastmasters as an example. I'm able to have that logo, and I almost feel like that really helps make it more of a real thing, as opposed to this gray box of like, is that like a real company? So I think that's really, really fascinating. What do you think is the key to long-term LinkedIn success? Because you've been at this for a while now, as we heard earlier in your story. What do you think are those keys?
The number one key is one word: relationships. If you're seeking to build relationships and provide value to other people first, and share quality content that humbly shows your knowledge, and you do it consistently every day in a non-assuming, boastful way, you will be successful on LinkedIn. But if you get on there, like I said, with a attitude of opportunity, I'm going to get on here and give it a shot and see what happens, your personal brand is probably better if you didn't even try it, because the chances are great of you burning your brand more than you help your brand, if that's your thing. So building relationships, being part of the community, doing stuff every day consistently. In fact, one of the terms I say is, on LinkedIn, you want to be consistently inconsistent. Be consistent with quality, but don't be predictable on exactly what you're going to share and how you're going to share it every day. So if I wake up every morning and I've got a video from you on my newsfeed every morning, and that's all I see, after a while, I'm going to scroll past that video. I'm predicting it. It doesn't have any excitement to me. I've moved beyond it. So you got to be moving around in your presentation to make your material fresh. It's always quality, but you don't want it to be predictable. And it gets to be predictable, people scroll right by it. So yeah, consistency, daily strategy, everyday strategy on LinkedIn, and you don't ever let up on LinkedIn.
Great point. And so, speaking of content, because you brought up video, what do you think is the best type of content on LinkedIn, and how should we tie hashtags into our content? Because I don't think a lot of people realize hashtags, I think, has become a really big thing on LinkedIn.
Hashtags are incredibly important on LinkedIn, not only for exposure for your content, but believe it or not, hashtags are the greatest way for you to get your brand into another network of people you don't even know. So what sort of content should you share on LinkedIn? Well, first of all, who are you trying to help, or who are you trying to appeal to? My approach to LinkedIn might be a little different than yours. But basically, what I'm trying to share is information that is going to be helpful to my community. The way I do that is by deciding what are the topics of information I'm looking to share. So you need to decide what are your 2 or 3 key points you want to be known for. So I know what mine are. They're LinkedIn personal branding. So I'm always trying to find good content on LinkedIn and personal branding, or deliver good content on those 2 subject matters. But I'm also stepping outside the box a little bit, because I don't want to be predictable. And I also want opportunities for people who don't care about LinkedIn or personal branding, maybe to engage with my content to give me greater brand exposure. So I have some fringe areas that I also share content on. Like this morning, I shared content on networking. I share content on job search. So you got to decide, what are your core topics? What are your miscellaneous secondary topics? So that chooses your topics. How you share it? Well, you could share a link to an article. You could do a video about an article. You could write a long form blog post, which, by the way, I believe the significance of has died down tremendously. Or, as the new thing, you could actually write a longer post on your news feed with nothing but text, sort of like a blog. It's according to what you're trying to do, but you can mix it up. For me, mine is a mixture of sharing links to articles, doing videos on tips I find, and on occasion, when I have events or things that I'm trying to promote, I will actually humbly promote my event. So what I don't want to do is be seen as a guy on LinkedIn who's all about myself. A couple of ways you can pick up on that. One is every time somebody shares an article, when you click on their link, if it goes to their website, that person is focused on lead generation first, not on getting the content that is the best they can find for you. So that's one way. The other way is every time you see someone on LinkedIn, are they promoting something of theirs? Again, LinkedIn is not about you. It's okay to talk about yourself on occasion, but every activity is not about you. It's humble, helpful assistance to the LinkedIn community. So mix it up, be unpredictable, but always be counted on as someone that has quality content. Hashtags. Let me talk about that briefly. When you share a hashtag, by the way, try to put 2 or 3 hashtags in your post you make. Anything past 3 really has no benefit. And the other question people ask me all the time is, how often should you post? What I've noticed right now, that once a day seems to be the magic number. Anything but beyond one post, it tends to affect the exposure of both posts. So post once a day, 2 or 3 hashtags, you'll be in the game.
What do you think of, if you want to call it, personal branded hashtags? Do you think that's a good idea?
I think if you're new in your brand growth, there is no sense when putting a hashtag out promoting your brand when nobody knows your brand, nobody respects your brand. It's a waste of a hashtag. So if I were going to do hashtags like that, I would focus on the content I'm trying to get branded for. And once my brand starts to build, I might throw in as a third hashtag, hashtag the LinkedIn guy, but it's not that often. Usually I only do that when I'm sharing something that's promoting an event of mine, then I'll push that hashtag. I don't put it out there every day to try to be so self-promoting.
Great point. So, Greg, is there one correct way to use LinkedIn?
There's not. And that's a challenge for me because I have a way I do stuff and I understand what has worked for me and I am proof that what I do works. But that doesn't mean what I do is going to work for you. But there are some fundamentals that do work for everybody. Respect for other people, not about yourself. Quality content, not too much of it. That's all important. But just remember that you got to decide who's your target? Who are you going for? I know who I'm going for. I do a lot of stuff with CEOs of corporations. I do a lot of corporate training, collegiate training. My content is focused on appealing to those people. Now, if you have younger clientele or maybe in different industries or stuff like that, your focus might be different. Like you won't see me get involved in a long 150 comment post of nothing but just drama back and forth. I don't do that. My CEOs are not going to sit there and scroll through 175 comments to see what I said, but they will click on that link to that article that I give them. It tells them 5 reasons why their company must have employee branding for their employees. They will click on that. So it's all based on what you want to go for. That's your strategy, but just don't overuse your brand. Don't burn it out. Don't become a know-it-all. Don't become a look at me, because people can do 2 things that can ruin your chance of ever building a relationship. One is they can choose to not follow your updates. And if they do that, they will never see anything you do on LinkedIn again. You have no idea they've done that. Or the other thing they can do is remove the connection. Either one of those, relationship lost. So do LinkedIn right and you'll succeed.
Hey, Greg, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. This was,
Yeah.
as we talked about, this is what I want to call the first LinkedIn Live Atlanta, because I noticed nobody's using that hashtag. And
Right.
so one of the things I'd like to invite others in the Atlanta area, if you would like to possibly talk about your business, shoot me a private message and we'll see if we can work something out, because I want to have quality individuals like Greg. We're not just going to have everybody in the world, because I take this very seriously, being given the access to go live on LinkedIn. Greg, tell us what are some things you got coming up here in the near future that people might be interested in?
Well, I didn't realize you were going to ask that question, but I do have one thing in my mind I can relate to you here. I have a 2-hour workshop coming up on January 21st. The last one I did in December, we had over 50 people there, so we had to do another workshop. So January 25th in Buford, it's a 2-hour masterclass workshop. First hour is going to be basically a real strong overview of LinkedIn. And the second hour, I actually go live on LinkedIn and show you what every button does. And you get to watch me do what I do every day on LinkedIn. It's a hands-on workshop. So if you want to find out information about that, you can go to my website, which is greggburkhalter.com. Go to the events page. And if you want to, if I could ever help you in any way too, by the way, please reach out. Also, I'd love to connect with you. I'd be honored for you to follow me. As I said, we're all in this together. I'm not an island. I thrive on other people in the community. So please let me be part of your community. I'd love that.
Thanks again, Gregg, and thank you. We have a bunch of people watching us live on LinkedIn, and I know that StreamYard, one of these days, you're going to let us share all these comments. There's a bunch of comments out there. So thanks again, Gregg, and I hope you have an amazing 2020.
Thank you again, Jim. And I want to tell you, the fact I'm doing this interview with you today shows where your brand is. I fully respect it. You're a pro, and I trusted my brand with you, and my trust was well warranted there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Gregg. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Jay.